Let's make some ephemera and build a journal. Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. And I thought I'd start with a little bit of a messy craft just to get myself into the mood to relax, and then I would like to create the second panel for my folding trifold journal. Now this is the first panel. If you've watched this previously, you will see how I pieced this together. You can see the shine on there. That is a little collection of paper butterflies, and this is forming the front panel of a flip over journal. So we have three parts to this project. I've already made the first panel. Today I'd like to attempt the second panel, and we will be looking at the third panel. So here we go. This is a rough mock-up of what it could look like, and this is one of the panels. Now I did make a second one, so this is another idea, and I was also looking at how to make dangles out of cinnamon spice. And I've also created a little tuck here with a fun find inside in the form of a specimen card, and it's got that front and back, so we can have a look at how to make those. Now I've previously shown you in this example that one side is going to flip out like that, and then we'll have another panel flipping out, and we can then get into the journal pages. These can all be decorated and they can have pockets and tucks and ephemera. They could be writing space, they could be creative areas. This can be anything you want it to be. I've got two signatures in here at the moment, and I've got it so one could flip that way and another could flip that way, which would reveal this center panel. And it's this center panel that I want to focus on and show you how I'm going to do this today. Lots of inspiration from members and subscribers who have already taken on the challenge to make a French style notice board as their panel for the inside. And if you'd like to have a look at that, do head over to the Facebook group page. The link is below, and you will be able to find the amazing makes that have been posted up by the wonderful creators that join in our monthly swap here at the Treasured Page. And these wonderful creators come from all over the world. So thank you to everybody who's taking part so far. We are going to be looking at this final project, and I'm going to be giving the details of that. But first, let me just catch up and let me get this second panel complete. So for this, I just thought I'd get myself back into the zone, back into the flow, and I'm going to put some ink on some paper bags. Now these are going to then become glorious ephemera that could be added to a journal page. And of course wonderful things could be added to the bags when they're complete. So I'm just going to add a little shot of water to wet these bags down. Now these are Glassine bags, but you could make bags out of tissue paper, the type that is okay to get wet. You could have a look at what bags you've got to be able to see if you've got some with a shiny surface. But yeah, these are Glassine bags. They retain a wonderful crinkle when they're dry, and I'm just using Distress Range Oxide inks, and that was antique linen. I've also got a paintbrush somewhere, I think it's here. And I'm just moving some of that colour around, a little bit of ink. I just want them coloured, and I'm thinking as I'm doing this, as I'm selecting my colours, I'm thinking very much about my project inspiration, which is Margaret Elizabeth Fountaine. Her wonderful travels across the globe, as she was a butterfly collector. Now these are the water-soluble inks, so if I do put on a little shot of water there, I can keep that ink moving. But because they are the oxide, they'll give a smoky finish to the project. And so I'm thinking about these colours. I'm thinking about our project prompts, which were to look at trees, to look at cinnamon, to look at butterflies and the wonderful world of butterflies. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a greenery background here, and I'm allowing that to settle into the paper, and I'm just moving the ink around with a paintbrush. And I'm quite inspired by the turning leaves of the moment here in the UK with that gorgeous rustic colours. I've just got this one here just to inspire me. This is not an actual leaf, it is one that just floated in, and I'm thinking maybe a bit of darker green down the bottom. Let's just do that. So thank you for joining me today as I just try to regain my calm in my quiet crafting space after some stressful few weeks of having to do projects outside of creativity. But now this is just time to unwind and remind ourselves of the project and our inspiration for this one. So as I've said, it's Margaret Fountaine. Now she was born in 1862, so that is a correction to anybody who was watching last time. I got the date wrong. She actually was born in 1862, not 1878. 1878 is when she started her diaries. Or she was a great diaryist. She kept a diary until the last weeks of her life. So from the age of 15 when she started, just as she was about to turn 16, that critical age of coming of age and being able to think about getting married and all of those things that a girl would think about of her time. Now, Margaret was a British lepidopterist, which is a butterfly collector. She was a world explorer and she kept journals and diaries. And she was born into comfort in Norfolk in England. But she defied every social expectation of her era. Instead of marrying young and staying put, she spent over 50 years travelling the world, collecting butterflies and documenting all her adventures. Margaret visited over 60 countries from Syria and the Caribbean to the Himalayas, and she often travelled solo or with her devoted companion Khalid Nimi, a much younger Syrian man that she met in Damascus. But in the last episode of The Treasured Page, when I was making my first panel, we were hearing about how she lived in a sleepy parish in Norfolk and nothing happened. Her father was the clergyman and she had her sights on a young man that she had fallen very deeply in love with. Now, this was unrequited love. And she was besotted, but sadly Septimus just had other ideas. He was also Irish and he later moved back to Ireland after racking up extensive debts and also disgracing himself because he was actually quite fond of drinking, and unfortunately he embarrassed himself at a social setting and he was asked to leave. So Margaret then went and sent him a lot of money before she had any of her own. She was an artist. She sold all of her paintings. She sent this money to this man that she didn't even know whether he loved her, but he had sent her a letter saying forever yours, and she'd taken that as an indication that there was something more there than there actually was. And later he did thank her for the letters, but she pursued it some more, and eventually he started to return her letters without anything being said, unopened. He just returned them. And she was devastated, absolutely so devastated after sending him all that money, and it came to nothing. So she then received her fortune from her uncle who passed away. He had no children, and her sisters, she was from a very large family, they all required an annual allowance, and that had allowed them to travel. So I think you're now up to speed with the story. I will tell you a little bit more, but what I'm showing you here is that I've used my oxide inks. They've soaked in. We've got quite a nice smoky image there, and that has created a fun streaky background which could be reminiscent of a walk in the woods, this autumnal feel that I'm after, and I want to put some stamping on there, and then these will just be fun additions to the journal. And these are really easy to make, so you could just see it was just water, ink, and then just moving it around so that we don't get too much of the harsh lines there. Could have more background on there, could put a butterfly in, we could add little things, just a nice detail for more decoration on there. So yeah, they were just a bit of fun. Okay, now for those of you who have been following along with this series for the projects that have been coming out every month, I do post them up over on Facebook, and I am going to be announcing our third project topic for November today. So it's the first of the month, and we will be getting into that later. I'm showing you the panel here, and I'm also building up the story so it will all become slightly more clearer when we hear what we'll be doing for our third panel. So bear with me, it is coming up. All right, let's have a look at our second panel. So the measurements here, you can see I've got 9 inches by 6 1/4 inches. So that's 23 centimeters by 16. And what we were going to have a look at is how we are going to attach all of this together. So you can see I've got holes punched into the demonstration one here as a possibility of how we could bind the whole thing together. But we could look at tab binding, we could look at threading things through. I think I'm going to stick with the holes in my panel, and you saw the one at the beginning where I'd already punched and put some eyelets in. So I'm now going to have a look at this second panel, and for this we're just going to want some packaging paper. Now for this second panel, I've got together some packaging paper. This came off of a sketch pad, just some sturdy board there, and this is from a cereal packet, so it is quite strong and it's quite a nice craft paper, and I just collect them up when I get them. So what I want to do is I want to have 2 panels that are put together, and one is slightly shorter than the other. So I've already cut them, so we can see here that I started to measure out the 9 inches by 6 1/4. So that is that, and I've already cut it out there. So that's that one. And then I have cut out my cereal box, and I've just come in to leave enough of allowance for the hole punching to happen down the sides. So that is how I will be doing it. So I'm going to be decorating this piece and then mounting it onto this piece, and that's where the holes will be punched at the end. All right, so now I've got boards cut out here, and I'm leaving a good allowance on the outside there, about 1 centimetre. And it's just really because I wanted to use the wider eyelets, so that I wanted to make sure that I would have enough allowance on the outside. You can use whatever size you want, don't be limited, just have a look at what scraps of card you can find, and you could make your panels to any size, large or small. And I would just say, if you're going to have a go at the notice board idea that we're going to be doing, we're going to be covering this in either paper or fabric, and then mounting the two and giving ourselves some tucks. So we'll just move that out of the way, and we'll focus on one of them. So these fabric samples come from freespiritfabrics.com, and that is the Eclectic Elements, and this is Abandoned, and this also is Abandoned. So they are a little bit grungy, a little bit autumn, something a little bit different. The fabrics from Tim Holtz are really fun, and we've got this particular sample here. So I've got 2 in that colourway, and I think I may opt to go for this autumn feel for my journal. And the other thing I'm going to do is going to line it with a little bit of padding, and I'm getting this from packaging foam. I want to line my board with, just to give a little bit of a padded relief. It's not going to be too thick. So this is a sort of thing that perhaps comes around packaging on electrical items. You may come across it, and also bubble wrap would work quite well here as well. I want to cut myself a length off of here for the purpose of covering this board. Okay, so I am going to cut myself a length off of this packaging foam, just to be able to wrap around the boards. Just putting down some stick glue all the way around, so I can just lay that foam down, and then it will stay in place. There we go. And then I think what I'll do is I'll just trim around a bit more, just so that I can pull it over enough. We'll chop it round like that. Oop. It's a bit tricky to cut actually. I'll just do that and that and that, and then we'll just run the glue down. So this would be the same if you had a little bit of batting or wadding, but we are junk journaling, so we're just going to use whatever we can get our hands on, and that is fine. You might have some felt, scraps of other fabric, something with a little thickness to it. Just have a look, see what you can achieve, clear up and use some of the waste packaging that we get. Okay, so that's quite nice, that comes together, and we'll just cut off here. So in order to understand what our third and final project is going to be of this quarter, which we'll be making throughout this month of November, we do need to understand a little bit more about the story for Margaret Fountaine. And we're reminding ourselves that Margaret was travelling in the 1800s and she had to get around with a steam train or different modes of transport other than the motor car, because that had not been necessarily invented when she first started out. So everything was taking a very long time, and she was quite an accomplished horseback rider, and all of these different modes of transport that she would be able to get herself around on. So she was one of these just fabulous women that sort of went around in these large dresses, having to sort of get on with the fashion of the moment, and she was very much into fashion as well. There's several photos of her wearing these fabulous hats and things, so she also quite liked to adapt her outfit to be practical for when she was out in the field hunting butterflies. You don't particularly want to be doing that in swags of fabric. So now, speaking of fabric, I want to line this over here, and I actually probably don't need as much as I've cut. So we're going to tuck that one under, and I'm going to be able to trim some of that off on that side. And just get the scissors here. So now I'm just laying this down on my fabric, and I'm going to be taking off a section that I don't think I'll need. Just tear that off. That just gives me a frayed edge, which is more desirable for other crafts within junk journaling than a cut edge. So that gives you a nice raw torn edge, and it helps if you're doing anything with vintage journaling as well. So I'm just going to see, I really don't want to waste the fabric. I've been hoarding it for ages and I don't really want to waste any of it. I am taking off any little bit that I can get my hands on, because these little pieces can become page tabs or different embellishments and decorations. So very sparingly using the fabric here. And I'm also putting down my stick glue over the top. So I've got my Yoo-Hoo stick glue there, and then I'm just pushing this down. I'm just taking off the corners here now, and I'm going to use a stronger glue to fold this one in. And I'm keeping all the little corner pieces that I cut away for snippet rolls and for collage. So I'll just take these bits off here like that. Right, for this I'm going to use my stronger fabric glue. Put that down, and it's only around the edges, and then I'll just pull that over. Now the inspiration for this part of the journal make, the second panel that we're creating right now, is to signify the love story that was between Margaret and finally a man that she really could call her own, and somebody that was there for her and loved her very much. And this is a love story that started in Damascus in 1890s.
I looked up, and there he stood tall, dark-eyed, his face lit with a gentle humour.
Now, the reason we know so much about Margaret's life history is because she left behind 12 leather-bound journals, and they started when she was 15 or 16. In 1878, she started keeping her diaries, and she recorded everything in there her whole life. And there are abridged versions that you can buy the book of, and you can read all about the life of Margaret Fountaine. A wonderful, interesting read, and the many people that she meets and the men that she takes interest in, but there's only one that really has her attention, and that is in the 1890s, when the most startling revelation of her journals or her diaries was when she starts writing about a passionate relationship with Caleb Nemi.
He held my hand, and I knew that for once in my life I was utterly lost.
Okay, those are my boards, and whilst they are setting, I'll put them off to one side, and then I want to decorate these, and I've got some paper here. So I'm going to be using this paper as my backing board. This is wrapping paper that you can get in a book. I'll just show you here. I'm sure we'll all want to know, and I'm apologising now because it is a little bit pricey, but the paper is very matte and very gorgeous. So it's from the Pepin Press. So this is butterflies, and this is from the pepinpress.com, and that is a company from the Netherlands, and there's all these different images of butterfly papers in there, so you can see lots of wonderful different papers that could be added to your journals, fussy cut, and it's a lovely matte old vintage style paper, so really pretty. You can get it on Amazon. I'll leave the link below where I found it, but it is really nice matte paper. All right, I'm using this one. It's got some nice warm sepia tones, and I want to make sure that I get that butterfly in there like that, so I will be creating as much of a scrap as I can. All right, I'm adding my glue here, and I'm putting my board down onto this lovely paper, and you can see I've left quite a nice wide border here. So now I've got my corners cut. I'm putting down my stick glue, I'm gluing all the way around. I'm gluing on the paper that I want to move over the top, and also a little bit on the board as well. And then I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to get the ends in. Doesn't really matter, but I'm going to get the ends in. I need my thingy. Right, let's get these bits over here. Okay, I am wrapping my boards in the beautiful paper that we've got here. So just going to have it like that. Bring that over with the bone folder, and then this one as well. So just make sure that comes in like that. That's going to look good. There we go. So I am wrapping my board in the paper. And this last one here, just pull it up and then push that over with the bone folder. That hasn't quite worked out as fabulously as I had hoped on this one. This one worked out really nicely, so this one will be mine. And I'll just have to think of something else. I'll put some decorative something down the side there. Ooh. So I cut my triangle a little bit close, I think, to the edge on that one, and we've ended up with that. But that's quite nice with the butterfly on the back. All right, extra butterfly. So we'll just patch up. So I'm just patching up that little bit there, and no one will know. There we go. Do we want one up there as well, maybe? And then I'm just patching up the little top there, and those are fine. So there we go, I've just patched that up. Don't worry about it, we can't always get it right all of the time, and those are my boards. So now these will come and live over the top here, like that. All right, so these are going to come and live there. And now we want some ribbon. Now I've got these lengths here already cut for some other project, and I just thought, well, they're kind of the perfect length, so I think I might use those. I don't really have any use for them elsewhere. No, I think we'll go with the yellow. I think we'll go with the yellow just for something different, and because in the spirit of using up our scraps. However, they're a little bit new and perfect, so I thought I'd get my ink out again and just sort of dip them in and create a bit of a vintage vibe onto these vibrant yellows. So I'm going to just use a little bit of vintage photo ink on top of a plastic tray. Alright, so I've got a little bit of vintage ink there, that's vintage photo, and a little shot of water, and I'm just going to put my rather vibrant yellow ribbon and just give it a little bit of an aging effect. Just sort of do that to give it a little bit of, knock down that colour and make it less vibrant. So we'll leave that to dry over there. Yeah, I'm getting my boards together now. I've got my ribbon here. I've got 8 pieces of ribbon, so I've got 4 to play with on each board, and I think that'll be fine. So I've also found these little corners, and I've just been pushing them on to this one, and I thought I quite like the look, and I've got quite a few of these and I never know what to do with them, so I thought this could be their day. This could be the day that I just find a use for them and tidy up some of the areas here where I haven't quite got it as precise as I could, because I'm rushing for the video really. So I just thought that might be a little nod, so I'm just going to take off some of those very pointy bits there, putting some glue on, and then I'm just going to push on my corners just to tidy up that edge bit there. And then these are going to just slot on here, but I am trying to put the fabric in there. So how I was doing it, taking a little stylus here, and I'm just pushing them on, making sure that that fabric goes in there, and I'll do it on the other side as well. It doesn't matter what it looks like because this is going to be stuck. Now this side's going to be stuck down, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I just thought I'd add those on for a detail. Look quite good. So there we go. I can just leave these to set. I'll just push them on ever so slightly with the pliers here. I've got some nylon grips on there so that they don't mark the metal. That's that. Okay, so now I want to move on to my ribbon. Okay, now I'm going to play around with the ribbon. I've got 4 lengths to play with. So I'd previously cut this for some other project. I don't know what it was all for. But I think once I sort of understand where I want them, I can then glue them down. So I'm just going to put a little clip here so we can sort of see how it might go. Okay, so I can sort of see how it might go. I'm just putting the clips on there, and then I can work out if I just want to have that going down there like that. And then we could have one up there like that. Or we could have them like that. Or I did think that I'd get the intersections. Okay. Alright, so I've got this. Okay, so I've got this. I don't really want that. I don't think that's just a wee bit too symmetrical for my liking. So I'm thinking maybe I'll just leave it like that and see what happens. but I do want to make sure I keep those intersections. So what I think I will do is I will stick a bit of glue. Alright, got these pinned in place, so what I think I'll do is I'll just put a little blob of glue and try and secure where I want the ribbon. And I'm also going to be mindful of how much length I leave, so I've got extra scraps. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. I'm just going to put a little blob of glue where I want these ribbons to stay, and just hope that that stays put. So I'll just, okay, so I'm happy with that one, and then I want to secure that one to that one, and this one to this one. Okay, so that's going there, and then I'll lift this one up so that I can glue it to the fabric. Alright, so we've got a bit of wiggle room, and then I'm wondering if it's fun to have it weaved, so maybe this one should come under there. Does that add to the effect? Maybe. Let's do that. Okay, maybe let's do that. Let's just add a little glue. Doesn't matter if it seeps through, because I think I'm going to stick something on the little intersection, some embellishment. And then we'll have that one there coming down, and then we want to secure it to the board. Okay, those two can come around and get wrapped round. That'll look different. And then let's just see where we're at with all of this. Oh, no, that one's not going to work because that one's... Yeah. This one wanted to come up a bit. All right, everybody's going to have to come up a bit. Just to allow that to wrap round. Yes. Well, this is a little bit trickier than I was expecting. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, getting there now. All right, we're getting there. Okay, looking good. Okay, so now I might just put a little blob of glue all the way along here. A little bit, just enough to tack it down. I think I want that coming off of there. So that one's got to come off of there. We can pull it up so we can still tuck things in. I just want to secure it. This one... Okay, so that's coming round here. All right, so now I'm going to secure my ribbon, bringing them over, bringing that over. Again, it doesn't matter what it looks like on this side. So we'll just cut away our little excess pieces, and then I can secure them a little bit better on the front when I'm happy with where I've got them. So yeah, never done that before, but I just thought we'll have a play around with the shapes and the patterns and just do sort of slightly unexpected things. So that is how that's looking. I really like the yellow as well. I think that's quite nice. It's fun to play around with some different colours. So I'm pushing my all through here at the intersections because I've got some paper fasteners, and I thought that they could add, oh yeah, they look quite good, don't they? A bit rustic. I like that. They're the copper ones. So I'm just going to use this idea, and then we won't see that because we're going to be sticking it down. And I'll just use what I've got here, which is a nice idea. Now, buttons would look great, or you could just glue on another embellishment. So I think that could work as well. So we're just going to put these through and have a play around with this idea. So I'm just posting these through as a fun idea. I just thought this was nice, little metal detail. Just reminds me of perhaps a steam train and all the metal parts that you would see when you're travelling. A little notice board like pins that go up there at the intersections. Just really pretty. And see what you have, you know, what you could find. What other embellishments could we think of to add there? But yeah, a little button or beads or sewing detail, just sew through, do some French knots. That could work. That could be a nice alternative, little inexpensive way of adding a little detail into each intersection. So I'm just using these because I have them to hand, and I thought that this could be a good idea. Thinking about it, I'm using quite a lot, so perhaps, but it sort of looks worth it. I kind of think that that just adds that special detail. Do we want one down there? We'll just add one here and here. Okay, that's how that's going to look. And then I haven't done this one. Okay, I am affixing my boards together. So this is the one with the yellow ribbon, and then I've gone and put some of the light pale blue. I think that probably will be showing up as white, but that's going to live there. So just to show you how I did it, I went around with some 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac. And I often have Fabri-Tac on hand in a bigger bottle, and I decant into this one. So this is actually Fabri-Tac, not that it matters, because both 3-in-1 and Fabri-Tac can handle fabric. So a good strong glue anyway, one that can handle putting together card and fabric, something strong, maybe a Yoo-hoo, more of a multi-purpose silicone-based glue anyway, something that you can just glue together. Hot glue gun would be great for this. To make sure that if there's any directional wording on the front here, I'm getting it right way up. So that's my butterfly the right way up, and there's some wording there. Just getting it centered and push it down when we're happy, and then slide it into place. Okay, here they are. So 2 different looks there. They are affixed to the board, and then what can happen is when we get our front panel, this can be linked on with that panel there, and then when we make the 3rd one, that will be folded in and linked there. And pages and journals can go in here, and also on this side as well. So we can either sew them in and bind them and find a clever way of affixing them to the string or the tab binding, or even metal rings. So that could work as well, and you would be able to adjust the height depending on how many pages you want to put in there. But you don't have to. It could be like that, and it could just flip out and be some fun and interesting finds, just some exercise on how to do some different things here. But what I could do to finish off embellishing, because we've got some wonderful little tuck points here, so I could be adding butterflies as well, which is a nice idea. But I had thought, because I've got these little butterflies that I was making before, that I thought I could maybe add them on. So I've got one up here where I didn't put a brad or a split pin, and I thought I'll just put a butterfly there instead and have it all in keeping with this idea. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'll probably have another one down here as well, and I'll do the same over on my yellow one as well. I think, why not? So we'll just have a little butterfly there, and then I think I could even decorate them on top of the buttons, and just a little bit of detail and decoration. Quite nice that they're raised up, and they're little metallic ones as well, because I added a little shimmer to those, so they were a bit of fun. And there we go. They are great. They've come out really well. And I think they look really nice if we start tucking little ephemera pieces into them and secret things and wonderful finds. So yeah, we could have those as an idea. So that's going to be the back panel of this whole idea. So this is the one that's going to be on the front, but our third panel is the one that's being announced today. Okay, so we've been having a look at the first panel, and we have today had a go at creating the second panel. And for the third panel in this series, this is a board which is a little bit bigger than the first one, but smaller than the second one. So the measurements here, we've got 20 centimetres by 13 centimetres. You can see that I've got 7 3/4 and 5 inches there. So we've looked at the fact that Margaret Fountaine was a butterfly collector, that she travelled the world around on steam trains and all sorts of modes of transport, and she had a wonderful travelling companion, and that is the romantic aspect of the project for this time. But for our next and final project, the part 3 of this panel is going to be all about the hidden diaries of Margaret Fountaine. So when Margaret died very suddenly with heart failure in Trinidad in 1940, she had left behind a sealed iron chest with instructions that it was not to be opened until 38 years after her death. Now, the box in which it was contained was described as a Japanese-style box, and then inside were 12 leather-bound diaries, and they were spanning from 1878 to 1939, so it was over 60 years of writing. So what I'm proposing for this final panel is that we're going to have 2 boards that are able to open out. Inside, we're going to be revealing something that represents the 12 bound journals. Each little card, packet or booklet will be able to be opened up and reveal something inside. So that's going to be the fun of this one. We're going to be making 12 little things that are essentially inside an ephemera holder that opens out. Those are going to be wonderful discoveries in their own right, so there's going to be 12 of them in there. Now, if you're wanting to send this off as happy mail to somebody else, and you'll be sending it for the 1st of December, they could be opening those 12 little packets throughout December, perhaps as a fun find to lead us up to the end of the year. So that's the idea. It's going to be a sealed sort of secret area that can be opened out. So I'm thinking this panel is kept as a board, but this one maybe has a hinge piece here, so you would be able to flip it open and there'll be a join there, so perhaps you could cut that down, tape it, and then be able to open this bit to reveal. And you could find 12 fun things and you could open them as you go throughout December. So very much based on the idea of these hidden journals that weren't allowed to be opened until 38 years after Margaret had passed away. And when they had a look and opened this wonderful chest and found the discoveries in there, they thought they were just finding more entomology specimens and butterfly collections, but they actually found her words, and it was written all throughout her life. And of course it was from when it started was exactly 100 years in the past. So it was 100 years later, and then you were able to read all the love stories, all the passion, all the wonderful things that you would discover as a woman growing up without much education or understanding of the real world. And as she fathomed it out in all its glorious detail, we can now access her words from the past.
Perhaps when these pages are read, long after I am gone, the world will smile at the folly of a woman who loved too deeply. Let them smile. I have lived.
So yes, this is going to be the secret hidden part in which we can have some areas to find 12 wonderful items for which we can make up, and I will leave that with you. You can go off and have a play and think about that, but that is going to be the project for this month, and you will be able to have a go at building one of these up with your secret compartment, which is going to come over like that. So that would want to have a nice decoration there because you'd be able to see it, and then you would have your front panel coming over and hiding that bit like that. So that's how the whole thing is going to fit together. And then of course you can have journals or signature pages within, and this is available on my Ko-fi shop if anyone's interested. This is the Lost Gardens digital kit, so there's some nice images there, and you know, these sort of areas could be folding out to reveal all the interesting panels that we'll be making, as well as giving writing space for our own journaling, and also future decorating of different ephemera that we might want to add, and all the lovely things. So yes, these are the papers for the Lost Garden. So there we are, nice autumnal one, and some really warm colours and tones that you could have in your journals. So that's a lovely idea of how you can see these coming together. This would look great with grungy papers or junk journaling finds. Some eco prints always lends itself to the autumn craft projects. So I have got several little looks here of how you can sort of start to see how you might want to piece that together if you wanted to have a go at making it. So we'll have a look at how all of that could be bound in, but I should think we could just sew those in like a normal signature onto another piece of card, and then we could maybe figure out another area of how that would then link in with a string and all come together. So we've got that to work out yet, but the main thing is now to have a little think at how we could decorate this board front and back, and then have the ephemera inside, and the 12 secret hidden journals or journaling cards or envelopes or packets with something secret to discover inside, and just really capture this sort of sense of hidden diaries from Margaret Fountaine. So thank you so much for watching. We're going to have a lovely look at that, and in the next video I'm going to open up my parcels that I've been sent with the panels that I have been given for the swap for autumn, and I can start piecing my journal together. So I do hope that's given you a little bit of inspiration on how you might piece together this final panel and have the ability to have it opening somewhere and a little bit of secret discovery inside. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate every one of you. Thank you for your kindness and your well wishes, and do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see how this project is going to all come together, and we can figure it out as we go. So thank you so much for joining me, but above everything else, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye bye now.